freaks you out.
Their house ransacked. The burglars got away.
We knew immediately, once he pointed it out, that it was in the sink. Neither one of us had done that. We thought, aha, there's the aha moment.
The aha from an invisible clue. It led police to the man who left no other trace. And that clue was his DNA on an orange juice bottle.
That's how he got caught. And Dan Tilkin is going in depth now at the Oregon Crime Lab, where they're cracking cases like this faster than they used to, right, Dan?
Well, it was just a few years ago we were reporting on how the crime lab was so far behind trying to process DNA. It was frustrating for police and especially frustrating for victims. I looked at the crime lab's data and learned a lot has changed.
Notice the door cracked open.
It was the middle of the day last spring when Diane Ingalls came home to find her dog Olive frantic.
There was indeed someone in the house when I came home.
Do you think they went out the back door?
They did.
The burglars had gone through every inch of the Ingalls house.
All of these were open and everything was pulled out and all over the floor.
The police said they were professionals.
I came in looking around, just starting to inspect things that they had gone through, and the first thing I noticed just laying in the sink was this orange container. I thought that was awfully odd.
It was an orange juice bottle like this one. Whoever had been in their house took it out of the Ingalls refrigerator and took a swig straight from the container.
And the forensic guy marched right in here and took out his kit and swabbed it.
The sample was sent here to the Oregon State Crime Lab in Clackamas to the DNA testing unit. The forensic scientists found a match. It's this man, Christopher Lathrop of Southeast Portland. Court records say when detectives confronted Lathrop with the DNA evidence, he confessed he burglarized Ingalls' home twice. He said because he stole so much property, he had to unload and then return to steal more. But he was busted because of his thirst.
That is common.
Stephanie Winter-Sermeno supervises OSP's DNA lab and invited us to take a look at what they do. As of last month, the forensic scientists are up to more than 5,000 DNA hits on items and samples they've analyzed. That means more than 5,000 times they've connected a crime to a criminal who's left his DNA on something, even food.
Whether it's a piece of cheese or a sandwich. I believe one analyst had a pickle that was partially eaten and left behind at a scene, and we were able to obtain a profile from that.
We also learned the crime lab is now having success at a much faster rate. In 2010, it would take the lab a year and a half to examine DNA evidence from a burglary or other property crime. Now the backlog is down to 6 months. For violent crimes, it's 4 months.
And it says how much DNA is in each of those tubes.
Forensic scientist Heather Feynman, who's worked here 8 years, tells me better technology is a lot of the reason.
From when I first started here, we had an extraction procedure that was a very hands-on procedure that took almost an entire day. Now we have different robotics that will do that entire process in about an hour.
Federal grants have also paid to hire more forensic scientists and to pay them to work hundreds of hours of overtime. The lab's goal now, to cut the turnaround time down to 1 month in the next few years. The staff also wants to improve on the rate of return, which is already high. Right now, in nearly half of all burglary cases they analyze, the lab finds a match between the DNA found at the scene of the crime and someone in their DNA database. Someone like Christopher Lathrop.
This is fantastic. Thieves would recycle. It wouldn't have happened.
And they have kept their sense of humor in all this. Now, you might be wondering, Christopher Lathrop, he was in the DNA database because he had done other crimes before.
And that's how they get there in the first place. All right, now the big question is, what about Washington? You know, their crime lab is right next door.
I checked with Washington and I saw a much different picture. This is what I learned. The state of Washington's crime lab doesn't even test DNA from property crimes like burglary. It's pretty surprising. It only tests DNA from violent crimes like assaults, rapes, and murders. The Washington lab tells me it doesn't have the funding to research the property crimes like Oregon does. But there's a benefit. If you don't test the burglaries and things like that, you can do the violent crimes faster. Their turnaround time is 3 months, which is, of course, faster than Oregon.
Right. Not by much, though. We're down to 4 months for the violent crimes, you said. So that's really a nice improvement.
Yes.
Thanks, Dan.